Reagan, and today I'm wearing the brightest sweater I own, but I'm bringing you today the top 10 books I want to read in 2018. This is always one of my most favorite videos to film. I just love making plans, always, and making a whole year-long, like, top goal plan. It's just something I really enjoy doing every single year. So, per usual, I picked out 10 books that I really hope to get to in 2018 for various different reasons. But without further ado, let's just go ahead and dive right in. So, one of my goals for 2018 is to read more literary fiction. I do feel like this is a goal I have every year, and every year I always read just mostly fantasy. Which I don't really mind because I love fantasy and it makes me happy and I want to be happy while I read. But I did want to include a few literary fiction novels on this top 10 list to really push me to read a few different genres this year. The book I really want to get to is The Brief and Wondrous Life of Oscar Wilde by Junot Díaz. I don't really know much about this book, but what I've heard about the author and the writing style, I just feel like I'm really going to enjoy it. It also follows our main character who dreams of becoming the Dominican J.R.R. Tolkien, so I feel like this might have a bit of like fantasy nerd reference culture in here. I don't know. But again, I've heard really incredible things about this novel, and I've been meaning to read a Junot Díaz book for a very long time, so I really wanted to include this on my top 10 books I want to read this year. Next up is a reread from a long time ago. 2017 I feel like was the year of successful rereads. I read a lot of novels that I had read previously and totally fell in love with them. So I really would like to read The Naming by Allison Krogan. Now this is a novel I read in middle school and I don't really remember anything about it, but I did remember enjoying it. So this is the first book to, I believe, a 5-book trilogy series, a YA fantasy series, and I would really like to get to it. I believe this is more of like a traditional YA fantasy setting, which is something I really enjoy. I've really enjoyed that with Poison Study and The Thief. This basically follows our main character who realizes that she has a set of magical powers and becomes a bard. Whatever that means, I'm not quite sure. But yes, I really hope to read this novel and hopefully a few more books in this series this year. Next up is a novel I did mention in my January TBR, and that is Neverwhere by Neil Gaiman. I would very much like to read more Gaiman in 2018 as I feel like he's an author I'd really enjoy, particularly starting with this novel. This is Gaiman's very popular, very famous urban fantasy story about like an underground, eerie London where people fall into and cannot leave. That's who we follow, our main character who falls into that London. I do not read a lot of urban fantasy. I read a lot of fantasy, but urban fantasy is a subgenre of fantasy I very rarely pick up. So I thought this would be a great way to kind of kill two birds, one stone, read more urban fantasy and read some Gaiman. So I really want to get to this, I believe hopefully this month. Next up is a novel I picked up in December and the synopsis has just completely captivated me, so I hope to get to it this year. And that is Kata, Akatowicz by Dendi, Okafor. This is like apparently like a Nigerian Harry Potter. It sounds incredible, and the blurbs from some of the authors on this novel just very much excite me. I have this novel and the second book. This follows our main character Sunny, who was born in New York but currently lives in Nigeria, and then she discovers her latent magical abilities and she joins like a magical group. Again, I've just heard really incredible things about this novel and I really want to get to it because fantasy is my life. Next up is a novel I've already knocked out, and that is basically I want to complete the Poison trilogy this year, starting of course with Magic Study. I read Poison Study last year and I really want to read Magic Study and Fire Study this year. I've actually already completed this, so woohoo, and I'm currently reading Fire Study. I'm really loving this trilogy. I really want to continue on with more Maria V. Snyder novels throughout 2018. I think she's a great fantasy writer with lots of interesting magic systems, so that's definitely novels on my list for this year. Next up is a novel that I feel like is a long time coming, and that is Blue Lily Lily Blue by Maggie Stiefvater. I read the first 2 novels of this quartet, and this has to have been over 2 years ago now, and honestly, to read Blue Lily Lily Blue, I need to reread that entire those first 2 novels. This is a very well-loved quartet on BookTube, but like also by the world. I really remember enjoying the first 2 novels, but I just never continued on, and I would really like to reread this series this year and finally continue on and hopefully finish it. It is a lyrical fantasy novel set in the South following one of our main characters, Blue, who has like magical psychic abilities, and she kind of stumbles into this group of the Raven Boys who are trying to find magical ley lines around their town. Again, a very well-loved series. It has beautiful writing by Maggie Stiefvater, and it's hopefully one I will get to this year. This novel I want to read so soon, and that is Little Fires Everywhere by Celeste Ng. I literally read about this book. Like, I wake up and I dreamt that I read it and loved it, and so I feel great immense pressure from my own psyche to pick up this book soon. This is Celeste Ng's second novel. I read her first one and absolutely loved it. And this novel is getting just as much love as that first novel did, which really excites me. This is a story following a suburban neighborhood in Ohio. It's basically a town that's very buttoned up, and we follow a variety of different families that live there. And then one day a new quirky single mother moves in, and it kind of shakes everything up in this town. It's all about connections and family and all those things that Celeste Ng does so well. I really would like to get to this very, very soon. Next up is another book from my January TBR, and that is City of Brass by S.J. Chakraborty. This is a book that I'm dying to read. This is a fantasy story set in 18th century Cairo, following our main character who summons a warrior genie on accident. Honestly, I don't really need to know much more than that, but I hear the writing is incredible. It just feels like everything I love in novels, always and forever. So this is just, I need to read this ASAP. Next up is probably the most requested novel that I read on my channel. I feel like I get probably 5 comments a day being like, read this, why haven't you read this yet? And I'm working on it. And that is Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. This is my top priority to read in 2018. Like, it has been way too long and I haven't read this novel. It's ridiculous. I honestly would like to read more Sanderson in 2018 because I haven't read Brandon Sanderson in like a year and a half, which is ridiculous. But starting, of course, with Way of Kings and hopefully maybe reading the second book. There's 3 books out in this behemoth of a series right now, but I need to read this. This is top priority. It's gonna hopefully finally happen. I don't know when. Might take me a few months, but it's gonna happen. And the last book that's on my list makes me a little sad because it means it's over for now, and that is Thick as Thieves by Megan Wallen Turner. This is the 5th book to the Thief series that I love. There's apparently talks of a 6th book coming out, but who knows when that's gonna happen because Megan Wallen Turner does take quite a few years between books, which like breaks my heart. But yes, this is the 5th book to this series. Apparently the perspective in this novel is female, which is exciting. I believe we follow a new thief within this world, and I'm kind of really sad that I'm gonna be caught up with this novel, but I also really want to read this novel because I love this series so flippin' much, so I had to include it on this list. Alrighty guys, those are the top 10 books I hope to get to this year. Let me know down below some books you are really wanting to get to in this new year's. I would love to know. I'm a planner. I like to know other people's plans too. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you soon with another video soon. Goodbye!